Hi, David. We're going to speak about some of the questions that you asked. I decided to organize this whole topic of faith and to work on it in a more organized way. And I made some notes. Mainly, every single thing that I'm going to say here is based in Rabbi Nachman's teachings. And mainly, I tried to take out his advice for a person who's not clear in whether he should believe in Hashem or not, and doesn't know if doesn't know about the truth, doesn't know, if it's true, or and doesn't know what to do about it, how to go about finding if it's true or not. Obviously, it is true, but for someone who doesn't believe, so they have a question. So these I tried to organize it according to basic topics. The whole topic is obviously faith, but to introduce general things about faith, and then afterwards some more details, some things to stay away for when looking into the truth, to find out what is true, and some things to specifically come close to, some things to do when you're looking for the truth, and some also not almost like proofs or things to look into, or specific aspects that show that the Torah is true. But that's not the only important thing. It's not just important to find the proofs. It's very important to understand in general about faith and about truth, and the connection also between faith and truth, because these two things are connected. They're not two separate things. So we're going to start. It's going to be broken up into a couple of different videos, but I hope it's not going to be too long, so it won't be too difficult. But this is very, very, a lot of times that Rabbi Nachman's going to write in a page or 2 pages or even 10 pages. I'm going to summarize and mainly take the points. So when it comes down to actually applying these things that I'm going to say, a lot of things that I might say in a minute or two might need like a day or two of work and a day or two of contemplation or application. So fine, let's start. Also, I might be breaking up the video into a number of different parts. I might be taking it in a number of different Batei Midrashim, a number of different base medrashes. So if you see the background changes a little bit, so that's okay. Okay. So the first thing I think is important. I think we spoke about this topic a few times, and you asked the question a few times, about the idea of, what the nature of faith itself. What is it exactly? So Rabbi Nachman says specifically that faith is really something that we can't understand. Faith is something that's beyond our understanding, and something that's within our understanding, let's say a science, something that we can or mathematics, something we can clearly understand. 1 + 1 = 2. I understand the whole thing. So it's not appropriate to say that I believe that 1 + 1 = 2. I understand that 1 + 1 = 2. So so it would sound, the first thing you'd think is that fine, if faith is something that I cannot understand, so how can I go ahead to see that it's true if I can't understand it? If you're going to tell me, well, there are pigs in the sky, or there's something 1 + 1 is really equal to 4, so I can't understand it. So how could I even come to believe in such a thing? So the simple answer is that I explained to you before. We spoke about this idea that we can come to see that it's true, that it's fitting to believe, and this is what I said before, that we can't actually understand what we believe. We can't understand, let's say I believe that all the 613 mitzvahs are true. I believe that the tzitzis are a mitzvah, and that Shabbos is a mitzvah. I can't understand really why tzitzis are a mitzvah. Tzitzis are a mitzvah because Hashem said, and that's what it is. But what I can understand is that it's very appropriate, and it's the right thing, and it's the true thing. And it is true that Moshe Rabbeinu really did receive the Torah from Har Sinai, and that it is true that Hashem really does miracles. I can't understand the miracles themselves, but I can understand that Hashem does miracles, that I can see, that I can recognize. So, again, I can't believe. I have to believe in the Torah. And my belief in the Torah has to be faith, which is above and beyond my understanding, above and beyond intelligence. It's not something that I can understand, that 1 plus 1, like 1 plus 1 equals 2. But what, like everyone can understand, if I sat down here and Moshe Rabbeinu, walked with me to the Yam Suf, and he showed me the splitting of the sea, and he said, listen, Hashem does this, and I do this through the names of Hashem and through powers that Hashem vested in me, then it's, even though I don't believe, I don't understand how Moshe Rabbeinu is doing this, how Moshe Rabbeinu split the sea, I don't understand. He took his stick and he went like this. Doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. Nothing I can understand. Moshe Rabbeinu, maybe he understands it, but something that I can't understand. But I can understand. I could recognize that it's the true and the right thing for me to believe. So that's something that I can recognize. I can recognize where to put my faith. So the Rebbe speaks about this in Rav Nosson speaks about this in other places, which we're going to get to. That, like, I have to know who to trust. My whole life is based on trust. I go to the doctor. I don't understand how the medicine is working, but I have faith in the doctor because I understand that science makes sense and science tests things out very, very carefully. And even though I don't understand this particular medicine, I can understand that it's appropriate for me to put my faith in the doctor to a certain extent. That's like a mashal, just an example of how we don't understand exactly how it's working, but we do understand that it is appropriate to believe in the doctor, even though it's really belief. When I take the pill, I don't really know how it's working. I heard maybe some basic ideas, but like even without that, even if I didn't hear at all how it works, if it works, it works. So this is how it works also with Hashem, is that we're talking about faith, and faith is something which is beyond our understanding, and we have to come to recognize that like we all do recognize that we have to believe. We have to believe in something. We have to believe in a doctor. We have reasons to believe, and these reasons to believe are things that we can run after and that we can find, and this is called truth. So this is the connection now between truth and faith. That faith is something we can't understand. It's impossible for us to understand. And that's why, at least at every point, not that it's impossible, like absolutely, like very much like a doctor and his medicine. I can understand if I want. I can go online. I could look it up, and I could see exactly how the medicine works, exactly how it's made, and maybe I could even decide if it's really the right medicine for me. But we do live with faith, and we have to choose what we're going to believe in, who we're going to believe, who we're going to trust. And that belief in who we're going to trust, or this faith, should be based on truth. The Rebbe speaks about in a number of places how it's dangerous to have a certain type of faith, certain type of blind faith which is not based on truth, because that type of faith could often lead to false beliefs. If a person just believes whatever random things, then every single person that comes up to him and tells him to believe in something ridiculous, he's just going to believe in it, even if the person that's telling him is a lying person or is a bad person. So he's just going to believe in it just because he's the type that believes in everything. And if you believe in everything, really everything, so even things that are really not appropriate to believe in, so then a person will come up to believe in all the religions and in all the ridiculous things that, every ridiculous thing that ever came up in the world. So that's obviously not good. So a person has to have truth as a foundation for his faith. So these are topics that the Rebbe speaks about very, very, elaborates on a lot. We're not going to get into all the drushas, all the exact details that he speaks about. He brings it from psukim, and he brings a lot of different examples from different places that faith should be based on truth, and it's not good to have faith which is not based on truth. But here we're going to show, for a person who wants to find, that they can look into the truth, and they can find that Torah is what is appropriate to believe in, and that Torah is true. We can see and understand that it's true, but we can't understand all of its truth. That we have to have faith in. So this is what we're going to go about understanding. But it's very important to understand a lot about faith and the nature of faith and the nature of truth. And the more we understand about the nature of faith and truth, the more we can come to find what is true and what is appropriate to believe in. So this is where a person has to work on emes. Now, we're going to speak now about a little bit. Before we go, actually, we'll finish up one thing. The Rebbe does say in a different place, and it's not necessarily so connected to this, but just since we mentioned the idea that it's not appropriate to believe in everything, and a person who believes in literally everything that every single person says will just be he'll be a fool. Obviously, he's not using his truth. He's not using his measurement of truth to decide what to believe in, and he's believing in everything, even if the two things contradict each other, which is totally, obviously, untrue. So the Rebbe does say in a different place that it's better to believe in everything rather than to disbelieve in everything. This is obviously within the realm of Torah, within the guidelines of Torah. He's not speaking about to believe in other faiths, but it's appropriate it's better still to believe in everything, because at least when you believe in everything, there will be light there. There will be the truth you will believe in, and you won't be disbelieving in the truth. There are some people that go around disbelieving everything, and that's also very, very bad. And he's saying that that's worse than coming to believe in everything, because if you come to believe in everything, you'll also be believing in the truth. But if you come to disbelieve everything, a person just goes around saying, no, this isn't true, and this isn't true, and this can't be, and really he's going to deny all the truth. So that's much more dangerous than a person who's coming to believe in everything, and much worse. So, in the end of the day, it's something that faith is something that should be. It is better to believe than it is not to believe, even if sometimes you're going to end up believing in things which are not true. Now, I'm not saying this about the Torah. I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to find whether things are true or not. In fact, we're going to see in just a moment that finding whether things are true or not is. And specifically about faith, specifically about religion, so to speak, or about the ultimate purpose of our life, it is the most important thing. And this is the biggest thing that a person can do in the whole world. And now we're going to go on to the importance of coming to faith, coming to find faith, to search for truth. So it is the most important thing in the world, as we're going to explain in a minute. So going back to the beginning of the creation. So Kabbalah teaches, and Rabbi Nachman brings this in a number of places, this idea that Hashem created the world in an imperfected state. This imperfected state was a state of mixture where there was good and evil mixed up together. And Hashem perfected most of this imperfected state, and He left some of it imperfected for us. Now, what this imperfection is, the nature of the imperfection in this world, is the mixture of good and evil. That evil has some of good attached to it, and it lives off this good. But the fact is that good and evil are not totally distinct. It's not clear. There's no clear line often between good and evil, between right and wrong, between truth and falsehood. And our job in this world is to finish off this distinction between the two. So when Adam Rishon was created, he was created in a world which was almost 100% perfected. Hashem created the world imperfect in order so that He could fix it and leave one drop, so to speak, for Adam Rishon to fix. So Adam Rishon didn't fix what he was supposed to fix. He was supposed to not eat from the Eitz Hadas, and he was supposed to wait, and through that, and through a number of other things that he was going to do, he was going to fix the last mixture of good and evil in the world. And this is the idea of Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra, that it's the tree of good and evil, and it's a mixture of good and evil. It's not the other tree in Gan Eden was called Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life, which was there was no mixture of good and evil. So he ate from Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra, and that eating, without getting into long, deep explanations of what this tree was and how it worked, in a simple sense, what he did was he took the mixture of good and evil and he made it even more connected and more mixed up inside creation. So at first, creation was, let's say, 99% good, 1% mixture of good and evil, and his job was to perfect that 1%, so to speak. And afterwards, after he ate from and he sinned, and this is also what happens when every person sins, he takes good and evil and he mixes it up more. So let's just say, for argument's sake, after he sinned, he made it 50-50, or he made it 40% good and 60% mixture of good and evil. And then as the later sins happened, Cain and Hevel, and Dora Mabel and Dora Flaga, the generation where they build the Tower of Babel, and the generation of the flood and the generation of the Tower of Babel. So these, each one of these generations, they made a much worse, they sinned more, and they made more of a mixture of good and evil. Now this mixture of good and evil takes a tremendous power to fix. But basically, just going back to the original creation, when Hashem created man, he created man totally almost good, almost 100%. Everything about him was good. He was good, but there was a certain aspect that he had to fix inside creation, and this was separation of good and evil. So Hashem created the world. He created the world in order for us to come to perfect, to single out and to separate the good from the evil. This largely happens through belief and through faith. Again, on Adam Rishon's level, it's something that we can't. It's hard for us to understand specifically. We do understand that he had one mitzvah and he didn't do the mitzvah, and through doing aveiros, what happens is it mixes up good and evil. And this is a whole. We can understand how this works, but it's a whole different topic. How sins mix up good and evil inside of them. But basically, the whole world was created in order to leave for man, for one place to separate good from evil, to take the good, so to speak, and to leave the evil. And then, once good and evil is purely, totally separated, then the final perfection in the whole world would be in a perfect state. And this whole world being in a perfect state would be like the time of Mashiach, or even after the time of Mashiach, at Tchias HaMesim, where there is no death, there is no war, there is no pain. This touches upon a different question that you asked. Why is it that it's so difficult to find Hashem in this world? And why is it that we have so much suffering? I think I'm pretty sure you also asked that question. Why Hashem is making it so hard for us, and it's so we even have actual physical pain and suffering, emotional pain and suffering in this world. And the reason for this is that, in fact, it didn't have to happen like this. And in fact, Adam Rishon started off in a very, very perfected world, in a very pleasurable world, in a very good place. And he sinned. He mixed up good and evil. And as good and evil got mixed up throughout the generations, until we were left in our generation now, where good and evil is tremendously mixed up. And it's very hard to find where the good is and where the evil is. So we have a tremendous amount of pain and suffering, which is obviously from evil. And this pain and suffering is something which is a part of our life, because we live in a world and we also are people that are mixed up of good and evil. So until we separate our good from our evil, until we take the good and leave the evil, we will continue to live in this world. And this is the state that the world is, a world of pain and suffering, which will continue to be like that until the time Mashiach comes, which will be the final perfection of the whole world and the final separation of good and evil. So now that we touched upon this topic, we're going to mention another thing that Rav Nosson speaks about, that good and evil has 50 levels. We've heard possibly that there are 50 levels of Tumah, and that we were on the 49th level of Tumah when we left Mitzrayim, and if we were to gone to the 50th, so we would not have made it. We wouldn't have been able to be purified afterwards. So the way it works with these levels of Tumah, and the reason why, in fact, in our later generations, it's getting much, much harder and it's getting much more intense the pain and the suffering, and the mixture and the difficulty to find good and to find faith. And specifically the reason why we see that a lot of people are going off, and specifically in our generation are choosing not to believe. The reason for this is a very deep idea, but there's faith, good and evil are often or almost always on a similar level. So when a person wants to find, let's say, when the world is on a level of 5, let's say, when it comes to good or to evil, then the world has to overcome that level of 5 of evil to come to find the truth. So a person has to come to level 6, let's say, to overcome that evil of 5. So in the time of at least a person has to come at least to level of 5 to overcome. There would be an evil battle, and a person even has to have an extra edge on the evil to overcome it. So what happens is, as Mashiach, as we come closer to the time of Mashiach, the actual levels of Tumah go up. And as the level of Tumah, the level of evil goes up, the level of good that a person has to achieve in order to overcome the level of the existing levels of evil is even greater. So in our generation, in order to overcome the evils of our generation, a person has to actually go to a higher level than we had to in the previous generations. This is why particularly we see that more people are going off to choose not to believe. And this is something that was spoken about by the prophets, by Daniel and other prophets in the Torah. And they spoke about the later generations and how in the end of time, the end of the last generations, our generation, which is called the generation of Mashiach, where we didn't reach the coming of Mashiach yet, but we're in a time when Mashiach should be coming any moment. Hopefully he's coming right now. But in this time, what happens is that the evil strengthens itself because it recognizes that its time is coming, and that it strengthens itself to fight even harder against the good. Now, all these topics that I'm speaking now about Mashiach and all these things, we could talk about it more at a different time. This isn't exactly all the topic the main topic that we're going on to. But it's, some of these topics are important to understand in order to understand a good picture of where we're holding in the world as far as good and evil and as far as faith, and understanding the way that good and evil works with each other. A lot of times, basically, in order to overcome the evil that a person is facing at any given time, a person has to come to strengthen himself with good at least as strong as the evil. Without that, it's impossible to overcome. So when a person finds that he has a tremendous amount of evil that's attacking him, that's approaching him, and he's involved in a tremendous amount of evil or a tremendous amount of bad, so he knows that it may be very, very difficult for him to escape. And it's something that he has to try very, very hard, and he has to achieve, or he has to be shown a level which is very, very high in order to balance out this, or to overcome this evil. In our generation, the evil is strengthening itself tremendously, and we have to overcome it with tremendous power and effort to overpower it. But just going back to Adam Rishon, we're jumping from Mashiach to Adam Rishon, but Adam Rishon is kind of his time lets us understand what Hashem's purpose in the world was, how Hashem created the world and what He wanted from us. So Adam Rishon is very simple to understand because he was in a state which was one step away from what Hashem's ultimate purpose for the world was. So now it's really the same. It's a similar. We're in a similar state as Adam Rishon, in a sense that our job is the same. Our job is just to perfect and to take the good out of the bad. to separate the good from the bad, meaning to overcome the good, overcome bad by doing good. And Adam Rishon's job was the same, only now it's much, much harder. The mixture of good and evil is much, much harder, and the power that it takes to overcome the good, overcome the evil, and to choose good is much, much greater. Adam Rishon, relatively, it was much smaller. So we also have another added aspect, that the sins of the generations, each sin adds more mixture of good and evil. When a person sins, he mixes good and evil together. When a person overcomes a desire, he overcomes the evil, and he overpowers it, and he separates it, and he chooses the good, and the good is attached to him, and the evil would leave him. So, but this whole process is something we could speak about in different to explain more, more depth how this process works. We could go into a different discussion, but now we're going to stick to faith. So the Rebbe also says that true faith comes through bechira. Finding the truth comes through actually being tested. Similar to what we were saying before, you have to actually be tested, and you have to actually succeed in the test and choose the truth, and then a person could start finding the truth. When a person isn't tested, when a person is just sitting and thinking, this isn't the type of truth that it's very difficult to come to truth, to real truth through this way, just philosophical contemplation. The Rebbe here, and a lot of the eitzes that we're going to give, is based on the Rebbe's teachings, is not going to be things where we just sit back and philosophize. That's not the way that we come to truth in this world. A person has a mixture of good and evil inside of himself, and he has to separate the evil from himself, and this whole process is a process of almost action. It's a process of self-perfection, and something that doesn't happen just through contemplation. So a person who's brought up, a person who has a test in front of him and overcomes this test and actively chooses good and truth over evil, he is coming close to truth. And this is the way that we come to truth, and this is the only way to come to truth, is through freedom of choice. This freedom of choice is the choice to choose truth or falsehood, to choose right from wrong. When we choose to go with truth, so then automatically we can start finding truth. We can come close to the truth. When we don't choose, and when we give in, and when we lose to the falsehood, to things which aren't true, then it makes it even more difficult. So there's you might think that it's very difficult then to find truth, because it's very difficult to overcome, let's say, your personal desires or the things that are bothering you, or it's very hard for you to find the truth. So there is a consolation I found in the Rebbe's Torahs, that the Rebbe says that a person who's, I think this is even a Gemara Medrash, that a person who truly wants and really tries to find the truth, he'll be sent an angel of truth to guide him and to show him how to find the truth. So really, again, the main thing that a person has to do is use his freedom of choice, his choice to choose right over wrong, or more particularly, truth over falsehood, and to choose truth, to choose the right thing, to choose what he knows to be true, and to leave what he knows to be false. Then a person will be able to come to truth. And also, in combination with that, if a person has a true desire, a real desire for truth, and again, this isn't necessarily a simple thing, but if a person really has a desire for truth, then he'll be able to find truth, and he'll be able to come close to, and Hashem will send him an angel of truth. So we're going to stop here for now. We should be zocheh to really search for the truth and get these angels of truth, and to understand how this whole thing works. Later on, we're going to speak hopefully about more pieces of advice about what a person needs in order to go through this battle of finding truth, because it's a battle. It's not just something that we just sit back and choose the right thing over the wrong thing and we hope that we get it. There's a lot of things that a person has to do and a lot of details going into more fine detail of what it means to choose and what the difficulties are in choosing the right thing over the wrong thing, or choosing the truth. And then later on also we're going to speak about actual, you could almost call it reasons to believe, ways that we could find inside the Torah and inside our lives that it's appropriate to believe in the Torah and in the truth. Okay, so hatzlacha.